All right, everybody's here. You guys, we have 4 classrooms on with us. There's 2 at Northwood Kensett and 1 in, gotta hold my, 1 in Manly and 1 in North Springs. So welcome. We're glad to have you guys all join us today. So my name is Brenda and I work for Ag in the Classroom, and we've been doing these harvest farm chats for a couple weeks now. And so if you guys at any time can't hear me, we've got a Bluetooth microphone that I'm going to be handing off to Jordan here pretty soon. But if you can't hear me, just let us know. This is a speaker too, so we'll be able to hear you. Otherwise, please keep your microphones muted and we'll move on. We hope to wrap this up probably in about 30-35 minutes. So I'm going to, this is Jordan Davison.
Hey guys.
I'm going to hand the microphone off to him, turn my camera around.
Maybe.
Hang on. There we go. All right, you're on.
Hey guys, how are you? So we're out here picking corn today, and we are straight south of the golf course over by North Springs. So some of you North Springs kids might think this is kind of cool. Mrs. Yost actually grew up here, and her brother farms this, and we work together with him and his family, and we're about done with this field, but they actually just got honored by the Iowa Farm Bureau for being a heritage farm. So they have owned this farm for 150 years, and it all farmed and operated by the same family. So we're out here picking corn, and we have a 12-row chopping corn head, and these corn plants are really tall, but a lot of people think that the whole plant is going to get fed into the combine, and that is not the case. We are taking just the ears, and then the combine separates the ear or the corn from the cob and the husk. So, and then it goes up into the grain tank, and we'll dump it in the grain cart, and then the grain cart will take it and dump it in a truck. And then we'll either haul it, right now we're currently hauling it to the bin site right at the farm, or sometimes it'll go into town to the elevator or into Mason City to Golden Grain, where they turn this corn into ethanol and feed byproducts for animal feed. So, yeah.
Let's talk about the combine a little bit.
Okay. This combine is it's a Case IH 8250, and whoa, a little windy. And it's got a 450 bushel grain tank on it, so we can hold 450 bushels of corn. And this machine is 2 years old. So, and then this corn head is new to us this year. It's made by Drago, and it's actually made in Italy. So,
how long is this, and how many heads do you have? Or how many?
So this is a 12-row corn head.
Rows, yeah.
And it is 30 feet wide. And underneath each row unit, there is little lawnmower blades that chop these stalks up and leave it mowed down pretty good, so we can manage all this trash. So we'll come in here and we'll rip this up, and it'll be hopefully black. And
so when you say trash,
yep,
you mean the stalks, the
yep,
ears,
all of this,
leaves,
all of
that you don't need.
Right, all of that stuff there, we want to get incorporated into the ground so we can use it. So it will then rot and turn into organic matter and fertilizer for us to utilize next year for next year's crop. So, and then we have a bean head that goes on this combine, and thankfully that is put away. We are done with beans, and that is a little bit wider. It's 40 feet, so 16 rows. And yeah, the difference between corn harvest and bean harvest is with corn, we're just taking the ear and separating the corn kernels from the ear of corn, where when we combine beans, we are handling the whole entire plant and sending that entire bean plant through the machine to get separated, to separate the grain from all the trash. So,
All right, should we take a ride?
yeah, let's get in the
All
combine.
right. Get it?
Yep, it is.
Right.
Where's I set this? Okay.
All right.
You guys ready to combine some corn?
So when you plant your corn, do you keep in mind how many rows you have on your combine? How many rows you have on your corn head?
So we run a 24-row planter, and then we run a 12-row corn head. So, you know, 12 and 12 matches up. So we're planting at 60 feet, and we're harvesting at 30. So everything matches up really, really well for us. There we go. Hey. So right now, as I said before, it looks like we're taking the whole entire plant into the combine, but we are not. Those row units are pulling the stalks down and separating the ears from the stalk, and then it is in turn getting separated in the combine, and the cobs and the husks are getting thrown out the back, and the grain is going in the tank behind us.
If you guys can see this, it's a little dusty out here, but you can see the corn. So that's what goes into the hopper back there. So you can see all that's in there is the kernels. Everything else ends up back out on the field. And pretty soon, we'll get a glance of this and it'll just be solid corn filling up in that window. So can you talk a little bit? Yep.
Yeah, so this monitor runs the combine, and it keeps track of acres and bushels, and we can even put in here where the corn actually went. So if a part of the field is going to go to the elevator, we can tell the monitor that those bushels went to the elevator, and then we can create a different page where the rest of the corn maybe went somewhere else. This little thing here, there's 2 feelers up on the corn head, so I'm not touching anything. It keeps it between the row, and it gives you an opportunity to watch everything else that's going on instead of concentrating on holding onto the wheel all the time.
And you can do that because of GPS?
Correct. So, well, this is actually just location. So there's 2 feelers that are feeling it, 2 fingers that come out, and it's just keeping it between the 2 rows. Okay. So when we cut beans, we can go in here and we can use our GPS, and we can set an angle across the field or whatever you'd like to do. And if I hit this little button right here, the GPS on the combine it'll drive itself across the field at whatever you tell it to. So this is telling us everything that where, like the sieves, the rotor, this combine has the capability of changing things automatically based on what is coming into it. So it will adjust based on what we are feeding it. So if the corn is really, if we're getting a lot of corn coming in, it might open some of these up. It might blow your fan faster or open your sieves up more. If anything on that turns blue, that means it's changing, and that's a good thing. And we can go through got different screens. This tells us where everything is set at. Every once in a while, you'll see a number change, and that's okay. That's what it's supposed to do. And then this is monitoring your fuel level. Just all important things that you need to keep in mind. So, and then up here we've got an iPad that is Bluetooth from the combine to here, and it lets us take it out of the cab after the season or at the end of the day, and it's a tool that we can use that helps us make decisions for next year, or what hybrid did well versus another, and it's just a nice tool to have.
So this seems like a pretty long row. Are these mile-long rows, or how long is this?
These are half mile. These are half mile
Like
long.
a long way.
So
do you own this land? Do you rent this land?
Marcus Spots actually owns it, and him and my dad started farming together probably 13, 14 years ago. So we all work together as a team to my acres, my dad's acres, and Marcus's acres. We all work together as a team to try to get it done as efficiently as we can.
So how many people do you have involved in your farm operation?
It depends on the day. My dad and Marcus and myself, my brother Cole helps out. My other brother sells crop insurance, so he's involved. My mom and Marcus's wife, they're involved. Marcus has got two boys that are involved, and then we've got really, really good help. We've got a couple of retired guys that drive truck for us, and then we've got a retired teacher from North Springs that he runs the grain cart for us. He's just not here today. So, but we're fortunate. We have a lot of really, really good help.
So you were saying that your corn harvest is going really well. Beans can be a little frustrating because they're more finicky with dampness and weather. What moisture is this corn?
This corn right now is at 17%.
Is that good or bad?
That's really good. So we're taking that up and running it through, I think Marcus is running it through his dryer. I just had an alarm go off that told me that I'm full. I think Marcus is running it through his dryer, and then I believe he is putting it in his bin to store over the winter, and maybe possibly sell it over the winter, haul it into town and sell it then instead of now. So that's the advantage of having storage and grain bins, where I don't have any storage. So all of my corn that I farm, I haul it all to town.
Okay, here comes.
That's my dad.
So do you want to talk about what's going to happen here?
So right now we are actually filling the grain cart, and that piece of equipment, it helps us stay as efficient as we can, because I'm still able to keep combining and get rid of the corn and keep going. So a lot of times, if you don't have a grain cart, or if you don't have the extra help, you have to stop combining, go unload the combine, and then it makes for a really long day. So if I fill this grain cart all the way up, it'll be a full semi load. It'll be about 1,100 bushel.
So when your grain cart, when the hopper got full, you got a warning, but how did he know that it was time to come up?
Well, I stuck my auger out. Usually if we stick our auger out, that means that we need to dump, and we work together long enough that we just both know when we're supposed to be there. Yeah. So by the time we get back up to the road, so when we get back up there, that cart will be full. And so essentially we traveled a mile and it's a truckload. So, and that'll end up being probably about 65,000 pounds of corn that'll end up on that grain cart.
So besides going to the co-op or to a bin, where else could your corn go?
The ethanol, we take a lot of corn to the ethanol plant to Golden Grain in Mason City. They take that corn and turn it into ethanol to fuel everybody's vehicles, and they also have byproducts that are manufactured as essentially it's a waste because they can't be used for ethanol, but they have distillers grain that cattle farmers and livestock farmers come and they buy from them, and they use it as a really good protein source for cattle feed, for livestock feed. So, but yeah, it's all of our corn either goes in a bin on the farm, goes to the co-op or the elevator in town, or it goes to Golden Grain. But the vast majority of it, even if it goes into the bin on the farm, eventually it will find its way to Golden Grain before next harvest.
What's your favorite part of farming?
Planting and harvesting for me. I like planting because you're starting out with a little seed and you're doing everything under the sun, everything that you can control to make that seed produce what we're combining now. And I also harvest is a heck of a lot of fun because this is you're reaping your reward. Like you started with a seed and now it turns into this. And sometimes harvest can be very disappointing because you think that it's going to do really well, and sometimes it doesn't. Mother Nature is always in charge, and she's the one that decides whether we're going to have a good year or a bad year. And this year's been a pretty good year.
Let's see. Can you hold those for
Yeah.
a second? Can I look at some of the questions you have? Watch. Okay. How many times a year is harvest done?
Just once. Usually harvest for us starts on, I want to say like the second week of September, we'll start taking some beans out. And we'll start taking some beans out, and then we might switch over and do some corn and run that corn through our dryers and get that to Golden Grain before there's a big line of trucks that are waiting to dump. But harvest only happens once per crop. So we usually start about the second week of September, and this year I think that there's a good chance that we'll be done by the first week of November. So sometimes it drags out all the way till almost Christmas. So
how fast can your combine go?
So right now we are combining at 4.7 miles an hour. Going down the road, this combine will do 24 miles an hour. So at 24 miles an hour, sitting this high up in the air in this big a machine, it feels like you're going pretty fast.
How big are your fields?
Between my dad and Marcus and myself, we've got fields that are anywhere from 15 acres all the way up to the biggest one I think is 240. So yeah, it's just it depends on the field and where it's located, and so but we've got big ones, small ones, medium-sized ones. And
how talk about your hours during harvest.
Now that we're done with beans, we might run till dark. So 7:30, 8 o'clock. But when you're combining beans, you go when you can, and sometimes that might mean that you might go till we've combined beans till 4 o'clock in the morning before. So yeah, we'll probably quit around dark tonight. I'm trying to find my row, but I don't know where to go. So
I'll let him focus on this for a minute. You literally have to count rows sometimes.
So we're gonna go in right here.
So what do you harvest first? You talked a little bit about this, but do you always do beans first and then corn, or how do you decide that?
We're fortunate enough that Marcus has a dryer and my dad has a dryer. So we try to get our beans done first, but if we can't, having those dryers, it makes it appealing to go get some corn combine. If the beans are too wet or we just can't go because beans are very finicky, like Brenda said. So for us, for our operation, ideally you'd like to get your beans done first, but we just finished beans yesterday and we're also we're over half done with our corn. So we took advantage of the nice weather and got some corn out when we couldn't combine the beans. So, and this year was a little different for us because we had a frost in June that killed a lot of our soybeans. So we had to go back and replant, and it set those beans back even farther because we had to plant them in June when, normally we're done planting beans in the middle of May. So the frost this summer, it hasn't happened in 60 some years, but we got one this year. So we had to go back and we had to replant like 750 acres of beans this summer. So
you've been talking about the moisture in corn and drying it. Why does corn have to be dry?
All grains have to be dried to be able to store them. If for corn, anything over 15, 16%, there's enough moisture left in the kernels that it will actually start to mold and spoil. And for beans, anything over 13.5 to 14%, they could also anything over 14% for beans, they can spoil too. Because you don't want your crop to spoil, because then you can't get paid for it.
So how many pieces of equipment do you have? I'm assuming you share your equipment with your dad.
So my dad and Marcus own the majority of the equipment. So we've got the tractor that's on the grain cart also pulls our planter. And we have a self-propelled sprayer and a big 4-wheel drive tractor to do tillage with. So,
do you have any livestock?
No, we do not. My kids do. They've got a bucket bottle calf and a pot-bellied pig, but that's the extent of our livestock.
Oh, can you talk about, I don't know if you students have ever heard the word input before, but farmers talk a lot about inputs. Can you tell them what that means?
So on the farm, we have a list of inputs that, they all cost, every input costs money. The seed that we plant in the ground is an input. The fertilizer that we use to fertilize the crop is an input. The chemicals that we use to control the weeds and promote plant health is also an input. And every year, those input costs, we have to pay for those, and then hopefully at the end of harvest, we're able to make money off of the money that we spend on our inputs. So it's a lot of money up front, but at the end of the day, usually it works out really well.
Tell them a little bit about your family.
So I actually grew up on a farm 4 miles straight north of here, in between North Springs and Rock Falls. And I grew up farming, helping dad on the farm, and my brothers and my grandparents. And in 2008, when I was 20 years old, I bought an acreage 4 miles north of where I grew up, in between Rock Falls and Plymouth, kind of just south of Highway 9. And my wife Alana and I got married, and Reagan is now 10, Kate is 8, and Gentry will be 6 in December. In 2008, I got my opportunity to start farming the 80 acres around my house. I kind of expanded my acres since then, and I'm lucky that the majority of the stuff that I farm is real close to my house, and work with some really good people that have given me a really good opportunity to farm. Because without them, it's really hard for younger people to get started farming, and it's a real blessing when somebody gives you an opportunity.
Did you always want to farm?
That's all I've ever wanted to do. I wasn't quite sure what else I would do if I couldn't. So I'm very blessed and fortunate.
Here comes the grain part again. We'll do one more row here.
Yeah, I didn't plan this. Wow.
Thanks. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask Jordan right now? Otherwise, we'll keep going here. You can watch unload here again.
I just told a bunch of kids that you planted this, not me. So
It's a little.
That's fine, but you're also the operator.
It's a little cockeyed.
Yeah.
Little crooked.
all
You can
right.
see he's trying to get. There we go. You don't want to take any extra trips down the field. So if you guys have any questions right now, you can ask them of Jordan. Otherwise, if you think of anything when we get done, you can email them to me and I can ask Jordan and get you the answers. I think we answered most of your questions. You can see unloading again. It's a beautiful day out here today. When do you think you're going to be done with harvest?
I'd say 2 weeks. 2 weeks will be done. As long as, again, Mother Nature cooperates and we don't have any breakdowns. But I think it'd be 2 weeks would be a really good time to shoot for. And hopefully we don't have to work too crazy hard to get done in that time frame.
So one of the questions was, why can't you use the same head for beans and corn?
Because with the bean head, there is no way of separating. All we're after out here is the ear. But with beans pod from the ground all the way to the top. So we need to take that whole entire plant to get all of the beans. It would be a real struggle for this machine to take in, 10-foot tall corn and all of that trash and then try to separate the corn from the trash. So it could probably do it, but we would be going a lot slower than 4.5 miles an hour. And it would not be any fun.
And the bean head is a way different configuration. You don't.
The bean head has a sickle on the front of it, so it's like it's like a little saw, and all it does is move back and forth, and it cuts those plants, and then there's a reel that brings the plant into the combine, and yeah, the sickle would be junk after trying to harvest corn. It just wouldn't work.
I think we're turn this around a minute here. All right, that's been about a half an hour. And if you guys have any other questions, just email them to me and we'll get them answered. I can share them with Jordan, and we will make sure that you guys get all of your questions answered. Thank you for joining us today.